USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online at USCHO.com, featuring conversations with college hockey coaches and players and journalists who cover the sport.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Tuesday, January 26, 2021. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. Every team in college hockey has had fits and starts in their schedule. One team that's had a little bit of success mixed in with that is Mercyhurst.
And joining us now on this week's USCHO Spotlight, longtime head coach, veteran head coach behind the bench for Mercyhurst University, and that is Rick Gotkin. Rick, welcome to the show, obviously, but hey, welcome because your team's playing pretty well. 4 straight wins, including 2 over nationally ranked Robert Morris this past week.
Yeah, Jimmy, thank you for having me, Ed. Thank you for having me. It's great to be with you guys. Yeah, you know what? It's been interesting, as you know, for all of us, and we're happy that our team is getting some success here. And beating a great team like Robert Morris twice is certainly a great accomplishment for us. But it's funny because we had a win over Bowling Green earlier in the year, and they were at the time were 17th in the country. So I told our guys, you don't want to be that number 17 team and have to play Mercyhurst this year.
It does seem that you've been able to step up against some of the better opponents. For an Atlantic hockey team, you've actually played 6 games against nationally ranked opponents while they are ranked. Take us through your schedule and what has you've had. I know you've had some stops and starts related to COVID, but what has this season been like? It feels like you're definitely on the upswing as we're talking right now.
It's funny, Jimmy, because honestly, I think our schedule has been a little bit favorable for us. I mean, when we first started out, we were hoping to play Clarkson on the road. We were hoping to play LIU on the road. We were hoping to play Bowling Green on the road. And because of, like you said, stops and starts with COVID, with a lot of the programs, Mercyhurst included, the way it just shook out is, we get Clarkson here at home for 2. We weren't expecting that. We get a home and home with Bowling Green for 2. We weren't expecting that. We couldn't end up playing Long Island University, so we didn't have to go there, and I guess that's kind of a plus. You don't have to take an 8 or 9 hour bus ride. So really, what's happened is the schedule from our standpoint. We played 4 non-conference games, 3 of which were here in Erie. It's really been kind of a favorable schedule for us.
I want to get into some of your players who have performed well, and I'll start with the guy that he's kind of in the story a little bit for your team this year. That's Hank Johnson, a transfer player coming in as a grad transfer. Right out of the gates, you threw him in there. He had a season-opening win against Bowling Green that you referenced a little bit ago, and then he's steadily become your number 1 goaltender throughout the season, all but 1 start this year. What does he bring to the back end? How does he settle things down for you guys?
Well, you know what? Hank is a super mature kid. As you know, he's a grad transfer, so he's an older guy on a very young team. He's one of only 2 seniors on our team. And, he's very calm. He's a quiet guy. He's very reserved. And you know what? The truth is, he's been waiting 3 years for this opportunity. I was just talking this morning with Rick Gotkin, and I was talking about, maybe there's a point where we have to give Hank a rest. Guards reminded me that he's been resting for 3 years. So, he's been he's been great. And, Jimmy, you don't beat great teams like Robert Morris. You don't beat great teams like Bowling Green. You don't hang in there and get into overtime against a Clarkson and whatnot, without very good goaltending. And, Hank Johnson has really supplied that for us. And, he's a guy that feels like he's been here for 4 years, even though it's only been a half of a year, and gives us great leadership.
I look at your offense, the other side of the puck, and I believe if I just counted right, 18 different players have scored goals for your team, so you're getting some good distribution. But you mentioned youth, and I look at the top 6 scorers on your team are either freshman or sophomore. You've had to put some maybe not young in age, but at least inexperienced collegiate players in your lineup because of the makeup of your team. How have you seen the maturity of these players grow as this season has moved along?
Yeah, Jim, they've been great. One of our deficiencies last year was, we couldn't figure out how to generate more offense. So, through the recruiting process, we felt, we needed to find some guys that could score. And, both Greg Gardner at the time, Tom Upton, who, has left for the USHL, but they went out, they found Carson Briere, they found Austin Heidemann, they found Dante Sheriff, and a few other guys that, as freshmen have come up and have been able to score to this point. They've proven they could score, through junior hockey and everything else. And those guys have certainly been able to do that. And then you have guys like Georgi Fedorov, who's a sophomore and was part of a team that won 5 games last year, and Jonathan Bendoff, who was part of that. Stephen Ipri, who's missed a few games for injury here, but so. I just think it's been a really good, positive combination of, I don't want to say young and old, but it's kind of very young and young has really worked for us. The guys that, slugged it through the tough year last year got lots of minutes, got lots of experience, and, it's starting to show with some of those guys. And, some of the freshmen that have come in that score or have been scoring has really taken some of the pressure off other guys. So that's all been positive. And we're also getting production from defensemen. I think Saturday night when we beat Robert Morris, I want to say 3 defensemen scored for us. So that's another plus for us. So we think things are starting to fall in place. We certainly have a long way to go. Thursday will be another great test, with an excellent RIT team. But we think things are starting to really feel like they're starting to come into place for us.
We're talking with Rick Gotkin, head coach at Mercyhurst. You're talking about recruiting. This is going to be a very strange year for recruiting. As we talk to people around college hockey, they've got a lot of ideas about it. The extra year of eligibility players are going to get, that's going to mean both players deciding to play for an additional year and also players becoming available in the transfer portal. How is this going to be for you and for the overall landscape of college hockey with that on the scene?
Well, you know what, Ed, it's going to be super interesting. We're kind of in a unique place because, like I said, we only have the 2 seniors. Quinn Wickers is a 4-year senior defenseman, and then obviously Hank Johnson is that graduate transfer. And we haven't talked to either one of those guys yet about what the future might hold. And we certainly have great interest in having both those guys return for another year. The interesting part, like for us, is like how do we pay for that? From a scholarship standpoint and whatnot, and then how does that affect recruiting for a guy coming in? Does a guy who's supposed to be a freshman in a place like Mercyhurst, do you have to put him back a year? So I don't know if it's going to affect us much. I get the sense that maybe Quinn will probably like to try to move on and take the next step in his career. Hank's a little bit interesting for us because, as you know, he hasn't played much. So, and he's part of a graduate program here that has another year left. So it might make sense for Hank Johnson to come back for that second year here at Mercyhurst. But it really won't affect us that much. How other schools are going to do it's going to be the bigger picture, but we don't, we're just losing Quinn Wickers and potentially a goaltender. So we think it's going to be pretty manageable. And like I said, we'd love to have both those guys back. I don't know if that's going to happen. And I'm not even sure if we can figure out if it could happen. But certainly interesting times with what COVID's done to all our programs.
When we talk to coaches in some of the traditionally big name programs, and I'm not doing this to dismiss Mercyhurst or Atlantic hockey at all, but just to be realistic, you don't have as many people knocking on your door as, say, Boston College would. So there's a lot more work that I understand goes into it for all the teams in Atlantic hockey. And given that, how is this year with COVID restrictions, how's that affected the search for players for your staff?
Yeah, it's been tough. So, just like everybody else, we're watching, Greg Gardner and Derek Whitmore are watching tons of games online, through the different outlets, and it's been great. I guess they both have young families, so they really haven't had to travel much. Even I'm watching games online just because I'm bored, and get to watch some great hockey and lots of leagues. And again, we're not really looking for a lot of guys. We're always trying to get better, and we would never say never to the right fit. But at the end of the day, we don't feel a great urgency. We like our core group of guys that we're going to have here, for a while. And like I said, we've enjoyed a little bit of success here to this point with this team. And there's no reason to think that this team can't continue to not get better this year, but even get better as they get a little bit older next year and the year after. So, we think there's a lot of great hockey left for these guys here at Mercyhurst. But, recruiting is a challenge. I've done, just like everybody else, a ton of Zoom recruiting visits, I still, for the life of me, can't figure out how to leave a meeting. I left the meeting the other day, didn't realize I didn't leave it. I just shut the iPad, and somebody said, "Hey, coach, just so you'll know, you're still part of this meeting." And I thought, thank God I didn't say something stupid, because I'm very capable. I'm very capable of saying something stupid. I thought if I just closed the iPad, I was out of the meeting. I guess it doesn't work that way. You have to actually leave a meeting. But anyway, I'm learning all about the Zoom and Teams and whatnot. So it's been different, and we're getting through it. But like everybody else, we have so much to be grateful for, Jimmy and Ed. I mean, just the fact that we're able to play hockey has been a blessing.
More with Rick Gotkin in a moment.
This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from US College Hockey Online.
This is USCHO Spotlight. Our guest is Mercyhurst head coach Rick Gotkin. How about the daily routine for players and even your game day preparations? How have those had to adapt to this?
Yeah, you know what? We're getting used to it. We had pregame meal at going to Bowling Green in October on the bus. We're going to have pregame meal going to RIT on the bus on Thursday. So that's certainly different. We usually go to those places overnight the day before. That doesn't happen anymore. Every single one of our games is up and back, and that includes going into Rochester. So, it's a little bit different like that. Our game times have been a little bit earlier, which is nice. So we all get out of the rink earlier, and we don't spend as much time in the rink. We try to limit the time we spend around each other, which is a kind of a negative thing. But we don't spend a lot of time in the locker room talking to players, and we don't spend a lot of time as we would with video. We send video to the guys separately to watch, and we still do a little bit of video as a team. But again, we try to get in and out, and we ask the players not to spend a lot of time in and around the locker room or the training room or even the weight room. So it's certainly been different. It's been a different thing, and I'm sure we're just like any other program. So we're doing everything we can to try to ensure that our players and our staff remain healthy and safe, and our opponents remain healthy and safe, and obviously all of our students, which just returned to Mercyhurst this weekend as we began classes today for the first time in person since they left here in November. So, we all have our fingers crossed, and we all have to continue to make sacrifices and do the right things, and I'm confident that we can do that. And if we do, we should be able to continue to do the things we love to do. And one of those is to play hockey.
You touched a bit on the changes in the schedule. There are even some changes going on even today as we're recording. How has that been to coordinate that with the coaches and with the league office? I imagine that's taken quite a bit of your time.
Yeah, we just, the West coaches here in Atlantic Hockey just had a Zoom call with Bob DiGregorio for about an hour and a half on Sunday. And the coaches have been great. Bob has been great. The coaches have been great. We all recognize that, it's a big puzzle, and it's an unpredictable puzzle. And we're trying to make the pieces fit. We're trying to find some kind of, continuity to how many times we play in our pod. Our pod has been great just in the sense where, everybody is close enough where we can make those trips up and back and nobody really needs to stay overnight. We were lucky because Air Force, the way it fell out, came to us this year. Obviously Robert Morris had to go out to Air Force. I believe RIT still has to go to Air Force and Canisius has to go to Air Force. So, we've been lucky in that regard, but, I think everybody is doing everything they can to help each other out. We have to get games in. We have to continue to make this year meaningful for our student athletes. And at the end of the day, we have to crown a champion, or we'd love to crown a champion in Atlantic hockey. And I'm confident we'll be able to do that.
We're talking with Mercyhurst coach Rick Gotkin. And Rick, I look at your schedule to date. We've talked about it a little bit, but you haven't had to hit the road too much. You will go on the road not once, but twice this week, 2 different opponents, 2 different destinations. Rochester on Thursday, Pittsburgh on Saturday to face Robert Morris. How does that change? I mean, you already mentioned having meals on the bus and stuff like that, but can you prep really for opponents now, or do you really have to more just prep for what your team has to do right and how they have to execute? It feels like the opponent prep with, sometimes games getting scheduled at the last minute or canceled at the last minute doesn't seem as prevalent as it once was.
No, you're absolutely right, Jimmy. So it's interesting because RIT, we haven't played yet. So it's going to be different getting ready for RIT, and we're going to do everything we can to do that. We know that they obviously have a great program, and they've had some tremendous wins this year. So, we know we're going to have to play very well when we get there on Thursday. That's nothing new to anybody. But playing Robert Morris is a little bit different, only because we've played them twice already, and I'm sure that Derek Schooley, might change a couple things, and there might be a few different people in the lineup, and we're probably in that same boat. So, RIT is going to be a little bit different for us, just because as much as we as coaches can watch them on film and try to find some tendencies and whatnot, who knows what they'll actually do when we see them on Thursday late afternoon. But at the end of the day, we can only control what we can control. And that's really what we do and how we play. And, our lineup has been, guys coming and going for various reasons. We have some injuries. We have some guys that haven't played in the last, 6, 7, 8 days because of contact tracing through COVID. We have some guys that are coming out of quarantine, just like every other team is in the same boat. We're absolutely no different, but it certainly is different. So there's a little bit of comfort going into Robert Morris, just like I'm sure there's comfort for them, just because they've played us already. There's that less comfort, for us going to RIT only because we haven't seen them yet.
Well, it should be 2 great hockey games. Mercyhurst against both RIT and Robert Morris. Rick Gotkin, we always love catching up with you. You're a great friend of ours, a great friend of college hockey. So it's good to talk to you. Best of luck the rest of the way. Obviously, the most important thing, stay healthy, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you down the road in the postseason.
Yes, Jimmy, Ed, thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy being with you guys. How much we appreciate everything you guys do for college hockey and these student athletes. And I hope there'll be a day soon that we can all see each other in person, face to face. So thank you, fellas. And I hope everybody stays healthy and safe as well.
That's Mercyhurst's Rick Gotkin. Jim, always enjoy talking with Rick, and it's interesting to hear some of the under-the-hood things that coaches are dealing with this season. We were remarking off the air that coaches have been a little bit more open about what's been going on, and Rick has always been a great guy to talk to about some of that stuff, but the things they're dealing with daily routines and preparing for games and extra year of eligibility and recruiting, all of this is meaning a very different landscape for coaches in addition to just trying to deal with the pandemic.
Yeah, and I think, in terms of coaches that are being a little bit more open, for one, I think they talk to the media a lot more right now because everybody's realized that there's this simple thing called Zoom that you can use, and I think that's a big part. The other thing, too, Ed, is I think the coaches want the public to understand that, this is not an easy task, what they're undertaking. And I don't know that they're certainly looking for credit for what they're doing, but they want people to understand that this is not all fun and games. This is not about, guys just going out and making sure they get to play their hockey. This is about, athletes that have to be extremely disciplined to make sure that they're staying safe, that they're keeping other people within their university, their community safe. And obviously each other, watching out for each other. And listen, I know that Mercyhurst had some cases. I know Rick told me that he had COVID earlier this fall, his wife Diane as well. I mean, these people have gone through a lot to make sure that we as fans can be a little bit entertained in a really tough time, and that these players, these student athletes, can do something that they love. I credit every coach that puts in the effort to make sure that his team's on the ice these days.
Absolutely. No matter where you fall in opinions on whether there should be games played or not, or whether this season should have happened or not, you've got to give a lot of credit to everybody who's making it work and how hard they are working to make it happen. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and we'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Spotlight, a production of US College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.